Okay, I am doing this video solely for Joseph. And if you're not Joseph, don't watch this video. He said if I would do this video, he would do this video. So this video, how many times can I say this video, is 40 books that I want to read before I turn 40, which I just turned 37, so I have a little less than 3 years to finish these books. So I'm gonna hopefully quickly and efficiently go through these books. Some of them have just been on my TBR forever. Some have been gifts that were very long ago given to me. And some I just wanted to put on here just because. I will try to give a very brief synopsis of the book, if I even know what it's about, and or why I want to read it. Or why I have interest in reading it. So, in alphabetical order by author's last name, because there is no way for me to do it other than that way. First one up is Making Alan Happy, A Shadow in Summer by Daniel Abraham. This is the first book in the Long Price Quartet, and he's been yelling at everyone, including me, to read it. I actually did technically try it a couple of years ago, and my brain was not in a good space. So I will refer you to Alan's channel because he has a much better way of describing this series than me, and hopefully I will love the first book, and I will continue with the rest of the quartet. The next book that I have here is a book that my best friend sent me, and it is one of her favorite books, and I still have not read it, and that is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. And yeah, I remember seeing the film about the titular Last Unicorn, animated film, when I was a kid. I remember being slightly traumatized, but I don't remember much more about that, about it. So all I know is it's about a lost unicorn, and she tries to find some others of her kind, and that's all I know. The next book on my list is The Star's My Destination by Alfred Bester. I want to read this book solely because it was an influence and inspiration for Simon Jimenez with his writing in general, but in particular with The Vanished Birds, which is a sci-fi. And this, as far as I know, is a sci-fi, especially considering it's a sci-fi masterworks. It's really funky cover. But yeah, hopefully the stars are indeed his destination. And the next book that I want to read is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. Dan from Black and Blue Collar Reader kindly sent me this book because it's one of his favorites, in the way that The Spirit Cuts Through Water is for me. And I am determined to read it because if people love my loves, I want to love their loves, or at the very least give it a try. So I hope this works for me. I know it's about a circus, and maybe question mark. It definitely looks very circusy, and it's a coming of age horror-ish novel. So we shall see. Insert Rachel Bloom Ray Bradbury clip here. Next book that I would like to read before I turn 40 is Little Big by John Crowley. This is another book that was sent to me, this time by Matt, who is on all of the Discords, I feel like. And this is one of the first, if not the first, book that he sent me. And he has no doubt that I will love this book. And it just makes me really nervous because when people think that I'm going to love a book, I panic, and I'm like, but what if I don't like the book? And yeah, so this is a like a literary fantasy, maybe, question mark. maybe at the very least magical realism, and I hope beyond hope that I will love this book and love his writing. I actually read a short story by John Crowley called Flint and Mirror, and I really, really enjoyed it. So it gives me hope, a higher hope that I will love this book. Now, Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. John from Talking Stories sent me this book because I sent him The Vanished Birds, and apparently that's not how gifts work. They don't demand a gift in return, John, or anyone else out there that sends me books because I send them books. But this is a time travel book, maybe question mark, or at least very time spanning book. And I really don't know much more about it other than John loves this book. And again, I really hope that I love it too. This next book here is The Obscene Bird of Night by Jose Donoso? Yes. It's a weird D, but anyways, Donoso. The Obscene Bird of Night. I got this because I was at the bookstore a few months ago and this randomly was on the shelf and I was intrigued by it, and then I noticed that it was translated by Megan McDowell, who is a translator for a multitude of books. But in particular, I know her translation work through Mariana Enriquez, and this is apparently a classic from, I think, Chilean author? Yes, Chilean author. It's a classic Chilean writer and book from the, I want to say 60s or 70s. I could be wrong. But I was intrigued by the cover. I adore the translator's work. And really, that's it. That's why I want to read it. This next book was another random bookstore buy, and this is The Annual Banquet of the Gravediggers Guild by Matthias Inard, translated by Frank Wynne, translated from French, I believe. I think. And of course, it doesn't say what the language is. Yes, translated from the French. And I got this. It was on the front, like new in paperback section at my bookstore, my local bookstore, and the title absolutely and utterly intrigued me, and because I like death and death related things because I'm morbid. This is about a festival in a town where death shows up, question mark, and that utterly fascinates me. Next one here is The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. This is one of Joanna from Joanna Reed's favorite books, and ever since I knew that this was one of her favorite books, I've been wanting to read it, and I have seen the film. I know that the film is the first half of this book, so we will see. If you don't know what The Never-Ending Story is, there is a dragon dog creature, and he is amazing, but he also looks like a corn cob at the same time. Don't ask me why I think that. Just watch the film. Next book I have on my want to read before I turn 40 list is an author who shall not be named, but I will name him, The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. D from Through the Pages with D so kindly sent me this book. Again, that's not how gifts work, okay? I send you a book, you do not send me a book in return. That's not how it works, okay? But anyways, I've never read any Neil Gaiman. And I know that a lot of people recommend this as actually as a great starting point with his works. And she sent me this book, so multiple reasons why I need to read this book. And now we have Hild by Nicola Griffith. I have been wanting to read more Nicola Griffith ever since I read Spear, and now that I have no more Sarah Told Me to read, Nicola Griffith is, for me, her successor. They are very similar in tone, at least in my reading experience, and I just need to read more Nicola Griffith. This is a historical fantasy about Hild. So that's all I know. Next book I have here is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is a classic of Gothic horror, and I've never read any Shirley Jackson, and I really need to. I more than vaguely remember the film that this was, that they made an adaptation for. And yeah, I've heard that this is really, 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 really creepy. And it's probably not a bad idea to read it sooner rather than later now that we're in spooky season. Next book here is Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. This is one of, if not the favorite of Matt, from the same Matt from various Discords. And yeah, I want to read this book because, again, if people love my favorites, and Matt and I tend to align on a lot of our reading tastes, as we have buddy read every single one of Sarah Tomei's books together. I really, really want to try this. I've never read anything by Henry James. I think this is a Victorian writer, and I've not had much success, really much experience with Victorian literature, but I'm hoping to love this. The next book I have here, you'll see, have already seen, is Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James. And if you hear my dog scratching himself, he's scratching himself. Max, stop it. So yes, Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James. Lately, this has been getting a ton of like hype and talk on BookTube, and I know that it's very dark from everything that I've heard, but I want to read it. And allegedly, the third book is coming out relatively soon-ish, in the next year or so. So if I like it, it would be great that I will have a trilogy that will have been completed. You'll have already seen also The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I've read literally everything else by N.K. Jemisin except for the Great Cities duology. So I really, really, really want to / need to read The City We Became and its sequel, The World We Make, I think is what it's called. So yes, I definitely want to read this. I know I love Jemisin's writing. I know that this is the most divisive of her books. A lot of people don't seem to like it, but I loved the story that this world has. She wrote a story and published it in her collection that is based in this world, and I loved it. So I'm very, 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 very much looking forward to reading this book. And you can kind of see it a little bit off screen, but the next one here is Till by Daniel Kelman. I have been wanting to read this book for approximately 4 years, maybe even 5, ever since I knew and was introduced to Klaus, who is no longer on BookTube. But this is one of his favorite books. Correct me if I'm wrong, Klaus, if you're having to watch this. And when I heard about it and I looked into it a little bit, I am absolutely and utterly fascinated by it. It is a historical fantasy translated into German, or translated from German, and it is about a jester, maybe, ? Trickster. Yeah, he's a trickster. Jester, player. His hand shakes like a pact with the devil. Yeah, there's like the devil incarnate, devil deals going on. And I'm just utterly fascinated by the premise. And I really, really, really have been wanting to read it. And dadgummit, I need to read it. Next one here is the Jungle Books by Rudyard Kipling. The reason that I want to read this at all, let alone before I am 40, is because this is one of, if not the favorite, at least that I saw in an interview, of book of Robin Hobb's. And I've seen the film, the Disney adaptation. Obviously, it's Disney. They're going to Disneyfy everything. And I loved it. I loved the film, so I want to read the Jungle Books and see, one, how it differs, how Disney Disneyfied it, and two, how it can inform other authors' works. i.e. Robin Hobb. So, yeah, this is it. This is about Mowgli, and he's in the jungle. What else do you need to know? And the next one here, Derry, I hope you will be very excited about this, is The Heralds of Valdemar. The first book is Arrows of the Queen, which I'm putting on the list here, by Mercedes Lackey. Derry has been hounding me to read this book, and dadgummit, if I don't read it before I'm 40, I don't know what will happen. I might internally combust. The next book here is Ymir by Rich Larson. This is apparently, if I recall correctly, like a Beowulf retelling, but in space. Or at least it's very much inspired by that. And this is actually one of Nick from his channel was called Wicked Good Books, but he's now on Instagram. Lethe Bound Wolf, I think is his Instagram. I'll link everybody down below. This is one of his favorite books. Nick, in case you don't know the lore, is the one who got me into Simon Jimenez's works and literally told me to read The Vanished Birds. I read it. We were supposed to read The Spear Cuts Through Water. He fell behind. I went on as I do with buddy reads. And yeah, he just started me on this road with Simon Jimenez's works, and I want to read a book that is very important to him, and that it's a Beowulf ? Retelling is very intriguing because I do like Beowulf. So, Ymir by Rich Larson. And then I have here Mad Sisters of Essie by Tassan Mehta. This book is actually relatively soon going to get a UK and or North American release, but at the time that I got this book, which is gorgeous by the way, it was only available in India. So I will leave a link down below to, I think it was called Chempacha Books, and yeah, I'll leave a link down below to the bookstore in India that I got it from. They do ship internationally. They were very kind, very responsive in making sure that we got this book to me. So definitely shout them out. The reason that I want to read this book is because, honestly, partly the cover, but also it's like a magical realism fantasy that's not Indian inspired. It is from India, and I think there are far too few of those books. Next book I have here will please Matt on books, and that is A Candle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is one of, if not the favorite of Matt on books, and similar to Something Wicked This Way Comes, Matt was incredibly kind to send me this book, and it's a sci-fi fantasy ? I actually don't even know what it's about. So I don't know. Apparently there's an introduction by Mary Doria Russell, if that means anything to anyone. And then here I have Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. This is a book that everyone is talking about. I know Jimmy loves it. John from Talking Story loves it. But the reason that it's on this list of books that I want to read, 40 books that I want to read before I turn 40, is because of Tanner. Tanner really, really wants me to read this book. It's one of his favorites, if not his favorite. And for him, I will read this book before I turn 40. So, Tanner, hound me to read this book, please. Thank you. Next book here, I was supposed to read with Carlos, and I kind of haven't yet. It's Beloved by Toni Morrison. And as I told him, I don't want this to become another white whale book on my TBR for 10 years before I finally am able to read it. Reading the first page was already so dense, but I'm determined and bound to read this book because I loved The Bluest Eye, how challenging it was, and I love Morrison's writing. It just takes a lot of effort. And this book is about the titular beloved, and it's about slavery in the United States yeah, that's really all I know about it. Next book, The Company by KJ Parker. I have read The Hammer and the Folding Knife and the Engineer trilogy and all of his collections so far, and I still haven't read The Company, and I really need to. The Company is about a company, and it's in the the typical KJ Parker style. It's very thematically driven, and I just love the way that KJ Parker writes. Again, Alan talks way more about this and better than I do, as well as Anita Gade. So I will leave links down below to their specific the company videos, as well as obviously to their channels. Next one here is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I have been so intrigued by this book ever since it came out, and I just never have picked it up and read it. And I want to. I know it's marketed as Mulan meets, I don't know, military fantasy or whatever, but that aside, I'm still incredibly intrigued by this. Apparently there are gender dynamics that are explored, and it's a duology, so it's a short series. Next one here is The Owl Cries by Pyun Hee Yoon, and this was sent to me. Mike, not Mendelin Mike, different Mike, pre-ordered this for me like a year before it came out, and we both forgot about it until it showed up on my doorstep, and I was very confused about what this book was. Anyways, The Owl Cries. I've read the whole by this author, as well as a short story collection that they released, and I really enjoyed both of those. So I am intrigued by this. I think this is like a magical realism horror novel. This is translated by Sora Kim Russell. Next one I have here is Indiana by George Sand. I have been wanting to get into George Sand's work. I don't know what it is about George Sand, but I'm like, I think I'm gonna love her books. And I just have never read anything by her. So I want to start with her first book. And this is a story about the titular Indiana. Yeah, that's it. And the next one I have here is The Last Man by Mary Shelley. I am an awful and terrible Mary Shelley fan because I've only read Frankenstein. I've not read any other Mary Shelley works. And I've been wanting to and meaning to read The Last Man for literally, at the very least, 15 years. And I just haven't done it. And if I don't read it by the time I'm 40, I don't know what to do with myself. But The Last Man is about the last man on Earth. There's a plague that happens, and it takes out the entirety of humanity, and the last man is reflecting on his life. It is apparently, allegedly, very autobiographical in that there are stand-in characters for Mary Shelley, Mary Shelley's husband, Percy Shelley, for Lord Byron, and for other people in her life. So I'm very excited to read this. I really want to read this. I need to read this. Please, God, I need to read this. Next book I have here is The Rangers of Marzana by John Scovran, aka Kelly Scovran. And this is the start of a trilogy. And Joe from Jimmy's Discord actually sent me this trilogy after I mentioned that I had asked about it. And he very kindly sent me the trilogy. I benefited from his generosity. And to be honest, the reason that I want to read this book is because I was searching for artwork by, I think it's Magali Villeneuve. Magali Villeneuve. She does the illustrations for the illustrated versions of the Farseer trilogy. And I was looking up artwork on her website, and I realized that she did the artwork for this. And so I was diving into it. I'm like, oh, interesting. This might be interesting. And so I want to read it solely because of the cover illustrator. In the tail end light at the end of the tunnel list of books here, I have I Am a Cat by Natsumi Soseki. I've read 2 books by Natsumi Soseki before, Kokoro and The Miner, and I absolutely adored The Miner. And Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf very kindly sent me this book at least 2 years ago. At least, or approximately 2 years ago. A very long time ago, basically, in booktube terms. And this is, as the title implies, a story about a cat who travels around Tokyo. Next book I have here is one that I will be getting to, dadgummit, and that is To a God Unknown by John Steinbeck. We're going to be getting to this, Carlos. You and me, we're going to read this book, dadgummit, because we are reading all of John Steinbeck together. And if he reads any Steinbeck without me, I'm going to be really mad. Do you hear that, Carlos? I will be very mad if you read any Steinbeck without me. Okay? Thank you. Anyways, To a God Unknown is the one that intrigued me the most of all of John Steinbeck's works. And I had actually intended to start John Steinbeck, like my journey with his works with this book. And then things happened. Buddy reading all of Steinbeck's works with Carlos got in the way, so I had to play catch up. So this is very short. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I love John Steinbeck's writing, so I've no doubt that I'm going to love this as well, and I'm very excited for it. Beauty by Sherry S. Tepper. I read The Gate to Women's Country by Sherry S. Tepper earlier this year, and it so surprised me with the story, with the thematic depth of it, with Tepper's writing, and I really want to read this. And it may look like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It may be an actual Beauty and the Beast retelling. I don't know. But all I know is this will be my next Sherry S. Tepper, whether I like it or not. The next one I have here is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I technically read The Fellowship of the Ring when I was in high school, soon after or soon before the movies came out, and I just never continued. So I am determined, if I want to call myself a fantasy fan, I should probably read The Lord of the Rings. Next book here is Loris by Eugene Vodolaskin. Someone recommended this to me a couple of years ago, and I can't remember who it was. But ever since they recommended it to me, I've been so intrigued by it. It is translated from the Russian, if I am not mistaken. Yes, by Lisa C. Hayden. And yeah, it's a historical fiction, historical fantasy, ? And that's literally all I know. The cover is gorgeous, by the way. And apparently it is Russia's answer to The Name of the Rose, if that means anything to anyone. Then I have here The Deloriad by Missouri Williams. This book was, again, sent to me. And it's a sci-fi, allegedly. Maybe a climate fiction, post-apocalyptic fiction. I don't really know. But I know I want to read it because someone sent it to me and they obviously thought I would like it. So, to be fair, just because you send me something doesn't mean I'm guaranteed to read it in a timely manner, if this is any evidence of that. Next book I got here is Latro in the Mist by Gene Wolfe. I know Gene Wolfe is known for the Book of the New Sun, but this is the one that most intrigues me. Latro in the Mist. I know this is a bind-up of Soldier of the Mist and Soldier of Arate in one volume. So I'll actually probably just read the first volume, the first book, and then see what happens. But this is apparently about a guy in the Roman Empire in the early 100s, early aughts, whatever you want to call it. And he has memory issues. He has short-term memory loss, and that's all I know. So I know the Book of the New Sun is weird. I expect this to be weird. Whatever weird that is, we'll see. And then I have here Orlando by Virginia Woolf. Another book that's been on my TBR for at least 15 years. Not this particular book, but one that's been on my radar for at least 15 years. Maybe even 20, honestly. I don't know. But either way, Virginia Woolf. I've read The Voyage Out by her. as well as Flush Biography. And I was supposed to join in with Ben to read more Virginia Woolf, and I just didn't. And that's Ben from Overly Average Ben. So I'm sorry, Ben, for bailing. But I do want to read Orlando. It is one of those stories that crosses millennia and time, and it's, from what I understand, the same character across time, and they even do like gender swap, and there's like fluidity there with this character. And yeah, that's all I know. Then I have here To Ride Hell's Chasm by Janie Wirtz. Joanna from Joanna Reads sent me this book again at least 2 years ago, maybe. A long time in booktube terms, and I still haven't read it. She knows my love for horses, and she knows my reading taste, and she is certain that I will love this book. And again, I'm nervous. When someone is so certain that I will love a book, I get really nervous because what if I don't like it? So, no questions asked. I will ride this book. Oh my god. I will read this book before I turn 40. The penultimate book on this list here is Thrust by Lydia Yoknevich. Yoknevich? Yes, I think that's it. Ariel sent me this book a while ago. I'm so sorry. And this is apparently a magical realism book. And that's all I know. I know nothing else about this book. I guess it's like maybe climate fiction as well. I don't know. And if you hear my dog barking, he has opinions, I guess. And the last book here was not actually planned this way, but it's really really convenient, fortuitous, whatever the word you want to enter in here. The reason that I'm doing this video is because of Joseph. Joseph is cooking. Joseph reads books. And the last book is one that he recommended to me. And he actually sent me a copy that I am too scared to read because of the actual edition it is. So I bought my own copy, reading copy. And that is Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. He wants me to read this because he thought of this book as he was reading The Spear Cuts Through Water. And he was confirmed in his comparisons by apparently some critics. And yeah, I know that there's like Hindu mythology incorporated into this sci-fi ? Or is it a fantasy? Oh, the legendary sci-fi classic. Okay, it's sci-fi. So yeah, comps to Simon Jimenez. Recommended by Joe. I'll take it. So those are 40 books that I would like to read before I turn 40. We'll see if I can even get to half of them. Do you guys want to take bets? Over, under on half. Or even a quarter. Honestly. This is a delusion in the making.